Welcome to Ask an MS Expert Veterans Program. I'm Ashley Lee, a Navy veteran diagnosed with MS in 2017 and host of the Elite Warrior Project podcast, which is designed for veterans and active duty service members diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Thank you for joining us here today. This program is brought to you today in partnership with the Veterans Affairs Multiple Sclerosis Centers of Excellence, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, and the National MS Society. Today's program is an opportunity for you to connect and ask questions to MS experts on topics impacting veterans affected by MS. We will also highlight important resources and services available through the VA, the PVA, and the National MS Society. Society MS Navigators are online throughout the program, answering questions and providing resources. So please post any questions or comments you may have throughout the program in the YouTube chat box. You will have 3 poll questions throughout today's program to facilitate engagement and help us learn from each other. You can participate in the poll with your smartphone or by using your computer. Take a few minutes and grab your phone or enter slido.com in your web browser. We will have the first question on the screen in a couple of minutes. It may be difficult to adjust to life with MS because it is unpredictable, has a fluctuating course, and carries a risk of progressing over time. It can also mean getting used to ever-changing shifts in one's identity. Being diagnosed with MS was not part of your life plan, but it shouldn't stop you from living life on your terms. We have to survive, learn from it, adapt, and figure out what's next, just like we were trained as active duty service members. This week, we celebrate MS Awareness Week, which reminds us that every day, people living with MS do whatever it takes to move their lives forward despite the challenges. Today, we are going to have conversations with 3 MS experts who will share how to adapt to a new identity when living with MS and how to manage emotional changes in your journey. We will also learn about valuable resources from the VA, the PVA, and the National MS Society. So now, let's meet our experts for today. Dr. Aaron Turner is a psychologist and director of rehabilitation psychology at VA Puget Sound Healthcare System. He is the co-assistant director of research for MS Center of Excellence West and is also a professor with the University of Washington Department of Rehabilitation Medicine. He has experience working with people on issues related to adjustment to illness, depression, anxiety, and health behavior change, and with individuals living with TBI, MS, and amputation. Maggie Kasmirsky is a clinical senior social worker and spinal cord injury clinic coordinator at the VA Maryland Healthcare System in Baltimore. She collaborates with the VA MS Centers of Excellence in the East and West for social work and veteran caregiver support programs. Carla Clay served as a commissary officer in the U.S. Air Force from 1982 to 1986 and was diagnosed with MS in 2001, 15 years after leaving the military. Carla is a PVA member and has participated in 6 National Veterans Wheelchair Games and has won 12 medals in bowling, boccia, and track and field. Carla is the team captain of the Veteran Strong team for the National MS Society's Walk MS Dallas, and they were ranked as top fundraisers for the last few years. First, I'd like to ask Dr. Turner to join me on camera. Welcome and thank you for being with us today. Before we get started, we have one poll question. You have 2 options to participate. Option 1, use your camera on your smartphone to scan the QR code that is on your screen. This question will pop up and you can enter your response using your phone. Option 2, Type in slido.com in your web browser and enter the code 111807. You should see the poll question pop up on your computer screen, and you can enter your response using your computer. We will see the results on the screen in real time. So our first question today, I struggle with adjusting to a life with MS. True or false? All right, so as you can see from the poll results, we have about 50-50 here with answers and responses to this question. Thank you for participating. And today we're going to hear from our experts about ways to adjust to a life with MS. Now, Dr. Turner, no one is ever expecting to get diagnosed with MS, so it can really turn someone's world upside down. MS is unpredictable, it has a fluctuating course, and it carries a risk of progressing over time. So it can be difficult to accept and adjust to an MS diagnosis. What emotions are typical to experience after being diagnosed with MS?
Thanks, Ashley. Hearing about a diagnosis that has serious implications for your future life can inspire all kinds of emotions right at the beginning. People I've worked with have shared that their initial diagnosis resulted in a variety of feelings, including, shock, stress, worry about the present and the future, sadness, depression, anger. Particularly early on, the unpredictability of MS can lead to uncertainty and feeling overwhelmed. I can't see the poll again right now, but where we left off with it, it looked like the majority of the people were saying that they had some difficulty adjusting over time, and that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we heard from Janet, who said she went through a period of grief after being diagnosed. She lost a lot of her physical capabilities, which led her to being discharged from the Army. After dedicating so much of her life to the military, she didn't know who she was anymore. What can you tell us about grief, and is it normal to experience it with a chronic illness like MS?
Grief is often defined as the anguish experienced after significant loss. Although we most commonly associate it with the loss of a loved one, it can come with many forms, such as a loss of physical abilities, loss of social roles, loss of perceived future opportunities. Chronic illness like MS poses particular challenges as there can be multiple events that trigger grief over time. Exacerbations, new persistent symptoms, and physical transitions like transitioning to the use of a cane or transitioning to the use of a wheelchair. I try to steer around the use of the word normal, but I think it's helpful to know that grief is very common in MS. You're not alone if you're feeling that way. Grief takes time to overcome. And by the way, most people find ways to feel better over time and spend less time mourning who they used to be in the past and move towards leaning into who they want to be in the future.
All right, thank you. Next question is, this unexpected change in Janet's life also impacted her sense of self. Is it common to experience a loss of identity when faced with MS, and why might this happen?
MS can throw up all kinds of barriers to participating in the activities people use to define themselves, whether that's on a personal level, like, for example, no longer being able to be a distance runner, interpersonally, as in feeling like you don't have enough energy to regularly engage in social groups or hobbies, or even professionally, as in having to change occupations or retire. So yeah, it's extremely common, this loss of identity.
All right, thank you, Dr. Turner. So last question here from Janet. What's the best way to manage a feeling of loss and an identity crisis like this?
I think, as we already mentioned, I think it's first important to recognize this process is common, and data suggests that most people do well over time. That's really important starting point. That said, there are several well-established therapies that often begin by asking people to identify activities that bring meaning and value to their lives. For people with physical challenges or disability, this often involves finding things you can do and slowly, sequentially building them back into your life. This is the kind of thing that helps people slowly move from an identity of focusing on who I was, or to an identity of who I am and who I'm going to become.
Okay, thank you. Angelina wrote in and says she has grown into a stronger, happier person as a result of her MS. She prioritizes her health and doesn't take one day for granted. What advice do you have for people who may be listening and are struggling to get to that point in their MS journey?
Yeah, I'm really glad we're talking about this particular topic. We've learned a lot in recent years about how thriving is not simply about fixing the things that are going wrong, but also nurturing and developing what is going right. So the field of positive psychology has a lot to say about this. And in recent years, people are starting to study its effects on the lives of people with MS specifically. We're now better understanding that building wellness is a skill that can be practiced and developed. That'll be a theme we talk about a couple times, I think, today. For example, related to what we mentioned previously, we can identify positive values and lean into them by literally and consciously practicing doing them. This might involve practicing gratitude, committing acts of kindness, being mindful of situations and thought patterns that bring us joy as opposed to sadness, practicing savoring positive experiences as opposed to rushing through them in our busy day, practicing good self-care with healthy diet, exercise, sleep, reflecting on our thoughts through things like journaling, which actually has been shown in multiple studies to improve mood in the moment. There are a lot of strategies people can engage in.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Turner. We also heard from Jared, who said he was diagnosed while serving in the Navy. Because of his MS symptoms, he could no longer keep doing his service job. He had to relocate. He was completely overwhelmed and had to figure out a new plan for his career. He experienced a lot of anxiety and stress during this time of his life. So, Dr. Turner, what is anxiety and how common is it with MS?
Given the things we've discussed already, it's not at all surprising that anxiety is common among people with MS. You can find various published estimates, but approximately 1/3 of people with MS will experience clinically significant anxiety over their illness. This can include a lot more specific diagnoses like panic disorder, but most commonly, this is generalized anxiety disorder, which occurs roughly twice as often as it does in the general population.
How is anxiety different from depression?
Although anxiety and depression are often experienced together, they're very different. And have a lot of ways in which they're pretty different. Depression is characterized as the presence of things like low mood, diminished interest in enjoyable activities, fatigue, difficulties with concentration, disruptions of sleep and appetite, self-critical thoughts, and unfortunately, sometimes thoughts of death and suicide. On the other hand, the most common form of anxiety, generalized anxiety, is characterized by excessive worry and also apprehension that's difficult to control. It's often associated with things like restlessness, difficulty concentrating, irritability, tension, and sleep disturbance. So you can see that both cause distress and have a couple of overlapping features, but they can also be quite different.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Turner. Now, last question here. How does MS specifically impact service members? And what can someone do when it disrupts their career plan?
You asked specifically about MS interrupting career plans and what to do about it. This is an extremely large topic in itself. And I think we just sort of like hit on the surface of this. Most immediately, MS symptoms and disability tend to unfold over time in different ways for different people. So some disability is visible, like difficulties with ambulation. Some is less visible, like fatigue and cognitive difficulties. People with MS often have to make very difficult choices about if and when to disclose their diagnosis to their employers. This decision, I think, is often best made in consultation with a care team with input from people like physicians, psychologists, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists. And this process is often very similar for service members and civilian employees as well.
Okay, thank you. Now let's talk about how someone might start the healing process. If they were grieving over their old self and what people can do to manage all the emotional changes that they're experiencing. I've learned that practicing behaviors that promote resilience is the secret to not just coping with MS, but thriving with it. So, Dr. Turner, I think a lot of our veterans are already resilient based on their military experience. but can you explain to us a little bit what resilience is?
Yeah, briefly, I mean, I think resilience has many definitions, but it's often described as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, threat, or stress.
Okay. Is resilience something that people are naturally born with, or can the skills be learned?
Well, it is probably the case that some people are naturally born with some resilience factors, but we've also learned over time that skills that develop resilience can be learned and practiced and built kind of like a muscle. Another analogy that I sometimes use with people is that resilience is like a gas tank. You want to work hard to make sure it's full so you have the reserves when you need them. Resilience and positive psychology share a lot of features. Common resilience strategies include all kinds of things like nurturing your relationships and your support network, both individual relationships and participation in meaningful group activities. As we mentioned before, just doing a good job of taking care of your body and physical health, staying away from harmful outlets like substance use, practicing mindfulness, which comes in so many forms, we could discuss that all day, having positive goals that you're working toward, fostering openness and the opportunity for self-discovery, the ability to experience new things, and also monitoring unhealthy thought patterns. Those are just a couple examples of resilience strategies.
All right, thank you. Now, why is resilience important when facing a chronic illness like MS?
I think if we use our previous metaphor of the gas tank, chronic illness can drain our gas tank on so many fronts. Mental health treatment for psychological disorders, for example, like depression, is the equivalent of I say filling up your tank when it gets empty. I like to think of resilience strategies as things you can always be doing to top off the tank so it never gets empty in the first place.
I like that. Thank you. All right, Dr. Turner, thank you for sharing your valuable information with us here today. We'll see you in a little bit. All right, now I would like to ask Carla Clay to come join me on camera. Hi, Carla.
Good morning.
Being
Hi.
here today.
Thanks for asking me to join you, Ashley.
Now, Carla, you began experiencing symptoms of MS while on active duty in the U.S. Air Force, but you were diagnosed many years after leaving the military. Tell us, what were some of your first symptoms that you experienced and how they impacted you?
Some of my first symptoms were having headaches that were unexplainable. I would go to sick call and they couldn't, do anything other than tell me to, take the aspirin. I don't even think we had ibuprofen and all that back in the early 80s. I also had some dizziness that I didn't really want to talk about very much. I didn't know, how the military would perceive that, if that would be something that would, sideline me. And I also felt some sensations like my foot would go to sleep. And you know how you just shake it and wake it up, I couldn't shake it and wake it up a lot of the times. But then that would go away and I may go for several months where that didn't occur again. So it was really some little symptoms here and there. A lot of them I didn't feel like were important enough to bring up to my physician. And it wasn't until years later, as those developed and became more persistent and some other issues came up, that finally it was evident I needed to speak up.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How did your life change after the diagnosis, and what kind of emotions did you experience?
One of the first emotions was relief, that finally all of these different things that had happened and different diagnoses were coalescing into something solid, something that the doctors could at least attack and give me some direction on. I was perplexed about what would happen, how that would change my life. Would other people know? How would people perceive it? And my doctor directed me to the National MS Society, and I happened to live about 10 miles away. Mm-hmm. So I began going to group meetings, and sometimes I would just go in the middle of the evening and just read while another group was going on, read because they had a lot of materials that you could read there or check out. And the support group, at first, I was, concerned about going in with a group of strangers and pouring out what was going on with me. But they were very welcoming, and nobody prodded me to say anything, about my personal experiences. But as I got to know the people and relax, I realized we're all going through the same thing. And they had some very helpful advice and some perspectives that really helped me along the way.
Yeah, I know I can relate to that feeling of relief as well. And I'm sure many of our veterans out there watching today can as well.
Mm.
Now, following your discharge from the military, you became a medalist in the National Veterans Wheelchair Games and a big advocate for recreational therapy. So tell us more about how you went from being diagnosed with MS to being involved with the wheelchair games.
Okay, first of all, I must admit that I was never involved in athletics and never really had any interest in athletics at all, as a spectator even. So I was going to the VA for my medical care when the wheelchair games was on the way to Dallas. It was coming up in the summer. So that spring, my doctor suggested, a doctor in the spinal cord unit, the MS Center of Excellence, suggested that I participate in the wheelchair games. And my first response was, well, I won't be able to make the team. I'm thinking about high school where you go out for track or basketball. And she said, oh, no, don't worry about that. You don't have to qualify for the team. It's just that you require a wheelchair for sports and you get your care through the VA, so you're eligible. And then I told her, well, I don't know any sports at all. And she said, don't worry about it. The recreation therapist will help you. And she signed me up for strength training, first of all, which I thought, oh, brother, that does not sound interesting to me. But after I went and started doing it, I realized that is so much fun. It's a matter of competing against myself to see if I could do more, pulls or strengths, to do greater weight than I did the week before. And I loved it. And I loved building up my biceps because I had never seen those. And I was 55 at the time. So I went to the wheelchair games that year. The recreation therapist taught me how to throw a javelin. I'd never touched a javelin or seen a discus up in real life. But they taught me how to play different sports, and they were really good coaches. They took us to the track so we could practice track and field. At that time, I did racing as well. But anyway, I did win. As you can see, I have 12 medals. But the inside joke is, and I'm willing to tell people this, a lot of the medals, or most of them, I won because there were only one or two or three people in the competition. I've come in last before and gotten a gold medal. So I have to admit that. So the medals are fun, but the main point of the wheelchair games is to get you out, get you active, get you away from just sitting at home. I had been in a state where I had kind of retreated from doing very much. I wasn't driving anymore. And so I spent most of my time at home alone. And my only outings really were going to the VA. So I'm glad the doctor prescribed wheelchair games because I was introduced to a lot of new people. Many of them have become my friends all these years that I've been doing it. And I became active. I realized that I'm capable of a lot more than I thought. And the recreation therapists have introduced me to a lot of things that I never imagined I would do. We went indoor skydiving. I'm afraid of heights. And I went indoor skydiving, which is fun. We went rowing, doing adaptive rowing. We go on outings to different places or the community. And it's a lot of fun. So I encourage people, if you're near a MS Center of Excellence, make sure you get involved with them and take advantage of the recreation therapists because they're there to help you to engage in the community and stay active.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all that, and congratulations on all your medals. They look wonderful behind you. All right. So all of this is going on, right? All your competing, all the emotions that you felt with your diagnosis. How do you stay motivated to accomplish your goals?
Well, first of all, I think about the things that are important to me. My faith is very important. My family, I want to make sure I model very well, particularly for my grandson. And I want to make sure that my family understands that I'm resilient that I can manage things and that the VA is helping me. And so I stay motivated by focusing on the things that I can do rather than just mulling over what I can't do and missed opportunities. I realize there are things that I miss out on, and so be it. Life goes on, and I make sure I dwell on what I am able to do, and I make sure I reach out to people, family and friends, and stay connected.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, Carla, I know you volunteer at the VA and you also joined an MS support group. How has the social and community support from these activities impacted your life?
Well, I love volunteering. That was part of the prescription package that the doctor gave me before my first wheelchair games. The PVA sponsors you, and they are happy to do that, but they want you to volunteer in turn. So I volunteered at the Internet Cafe at our local VA MS Center of Excellence. And that was a place where people could come in between appointments, or family members and inpatients come and just relax, play some games, um, shoot the breeze, and have that kind of fun. I really miss it because, of course, we stopped doing that 2 years ago because of COVID, and I miss it so much. And I'm hoping that we start doing that again because it was a great outlet. I think that I benefited as much from volunteering as anybody that I assisted, because it really, really just gave me an opportunity to give back. And I enjoy doing things for other people. So it was very important to me.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, what advice would you give to a veteran living with MS who is struggling with their confidence and their identity with MS?
I would encourage them to look inside and determine, what are my values, what's important to me. I would advise them to structure things so that that's one in the forefront. Maybe that's one of the first things they think about or meditate on in the morning, and before they go to bed. I would encourage them not to fall down the rabbit hole. It's real easy on the internet to fall down a rabbit hole looking for just one thing, and before you know it, you're self-diagnosing something wild and crazy, or looking at some scheme of some thing that supposedly cures MS. I was fortunate, I suppose, because I was diagnosed in 2001, and we didn't have all of access to all of that. But I really do encourage people not to do that, to be very careful about who you let and what organizations you let get inside your mind. Because you need to really rely on reputable sources like the National MS Society, for one. The PVA has excellent, excellent resources, and the VA as well, and the MS Centers of Excellence. So I encourage people to really use those, because they will keep you on the right path.
All right. Thank you, Carla, so much for sharing your very insightful and inspirational journey with everyone. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
It was great speaking with you, Ashley. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. We have another poll question for you all to take. As a reminder, you can use the camera on your smartphone to scan the QR code, or type in slido.com in your web browser and enter code 111807. All right, our second poll question is, I have recognized mental health issues in myself and did not seek professional help because I was afraid of what others may think. True or false? Give just a little bit more time here to see if we get any responses, but so far the trues have it 100%. Okay, so it looks like we have about 60% true, 40% false for this question. Thank you again for participating. Dr. Turner is going to come back and talk about the importance of mental health and strategies to manage feelings of loss or change with MS. Dr. Turner, it's great to see you again.
Great to be back.
All right, thank you. We heard from Carla that being involved and connected socially was vitally important for her well-being and overall health. Tell us about the importance of social support when living with MS.
Yeah, I think people's specific needs for affiliation and support are often very different, but overall the literature is pretty consistent in finding that people who feel well supported have lower stress, lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of depression, and higher quality of life. In some instances, they even have lower rates of mortality. At the same time, we also know that MS can provide a real strain to social networks. Things like physical disability, fatigue, cognitive difficulties, and depression can all make connecting a lot harder.
All right, thank you. So we heard from Mark, who said he has become an introvert because of his MS, and he is very uncomfortable in social situations. Is there anything Mark can do to feel less anxious about joining a group or getting involved?
Gosh, I think there are a whole bunch of things Mark can do. To start with, for example, the National MS Society has a number of resources available to help find support. The National MS Society MS Navigator program provides professionals who can steer people to a host of resources, including one-on-one peer mentorship and online support groups. Many local VA hospitals also have veteran-specific support groups in lots of ways that even through the web browsing and searches, you can find local support groups. For example, if Mark is really struggling with social anxiety, he could also enlist the help of a therapist to get a little more help with this, who could help him come up with a plan to gradually reintroduce him to social activities that he finds meaningful in a sequential way. I mean, I think we got to hear that Carla, it sounded like she towed into the process of engaging in support resources and wondering what they might have to offer, for example, support groups at the beginning, but they were, it sounds like they were kind and welcoming and worked her into the process. So there are a lot of things out there, and just sort of recognizing that MS tends to put a downward pressure on people's social networks, and so that really makes it all that much more important if it's important to you to reach out and connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I know those support groups can be extremely beneficial. So thank you for that. Earlier, we talked about how MS is predictable and it can be overwhelming. This can cause stress and anxiety in people. So how does stress and anxiety affect MS symptoms, and can it make them worse?
Stress and anxiety aren't great in general. They cause the body to expend a lot of energy staying on high alert. This can exacerbate any number of common MS symptoms, specifically, including things like sleep difficulties, fatigue, difficulty concentrating. Over the long run, stress and anxiety can contribute to depression as well. And so, by the way, they're not that good for your general health either. They can be associated with vascular disease and poor and complications in diabetic management. So stress and anxiety absolutely have impacts on physical health.
Okay, so what are some strategies to help manage stress and anxiety?
There are a whole bunch. First, take good care of yourself, like we talked about with resilience. Just the basics, starting with good sleep habits, exercise, healthy diet. All these things are kind of bedrock and important to start with. Avoid solutions that have short-term benefits but long-term consequences, like substance use. I mentioned this before. Just for example, drinking alcohol to control stress essentially teaches your body to count on alcohol as its coping strategy instead of developing other things it could be doing. Instead, work on things like alternative strategies that can be available whenever you need them. Strategies like progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, mindfulness practices that cultivate that intentional present focus. Anything that inspires opposite action, an opportunity to force the body to relax when it's sort of developed a natural tendency to be wound up. Cognitive behavioral therapies teach people to identify troubling thoughts and to challenge them. That can often be the origin of stress and anxiousness. We've mentioned a couple times reaching out to friends and family for support. Even things like journaling, writing down your day and thoughts and emotions can help reduce stress over time. I think a lot of these strategies take practice to become ingrained habits and require work. But the flip side of this is that they're often easily accessible to most people. And a lot of examples can be found through online resources, mobile applications, mental health professionals. So there are lots of opportunities as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Turner. I know that some of those strategies you mentioned, I've tried using myself, and you're right. It does take a conscious effort to make those become a daily habit. So thank you for that as well. All right, so we heard from Davina, who has experienced several MS exacerbations, and as a result, she had to stop working and is now living at her mom's house and feels like a burden. She feels lonely and is also stressed about her future. Her best friend suggested she get professional help. Davina is embarrassed to see a mental health counselor because of what people may think. Now, Dr. Turner, why do you think there is still a stigma around mental health therapy?
Gosh, I think a lot of people want to know the answer to that question. They really do. We do know surveys of civilians, service members, and vets have consistently found a couple of themes. Some people perceive mental health difficulties as a sign of weakness or as a personal failing. Some people, particularly service members, fear mental health treatment could have a negative impact on their careers. We hear that all the time. Some people aren't confident that treatment would be helpful, and others worried that they might be branded with a label that they don't want, or be pressured into things that they don't want to do, like taking medications that they're not interested in. But I've spent a lot of my career advocating for people to get the help they need and deserve, so that mental health care isn't perceived any differently than physical health care. You know, if you break your leg or you develop diabetes, you go see a doctor. It's not a sign of personal weakness. It isn't likely to affect your job. In fact, if you're doing a better job of managing your health in general, it may be beneficial to your job. Medical professionals often can't make problems perfect, but they can usually make them better. And mental health, I think, should be viewed the same way, something that people have access to, and that can help them throughout the journey of their disease and their life in general.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, how can professional therapy help someone with MS?
You know, I mean, the good news is that there's a lot of scientific evidence suggesting that counseling-oriented therapies are particularly helpful for people with MS. Let's just take, for example, things like cognitive behavior therapy, which is a well-established kind of therapy that helps people recognize both thought patterns and behavior patterns that relate to corresponding emotions and that aren't particularly helpful. It's very pragmatic. The end result is to identify things that you're thinking and things that you're doing that are not particularly useful for you, that may be, for example, dragging you down a rabbit hole, like Carla mentioned before.
Yeah.
Another kind of therapy is acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a lot of things, but one thing it is it's actually another theme that Carla hit upon. It's a therapy based on helping people identify their values and living into those values. And the particular difficulty we know with something like a chronic illness like MS is that often requires us to recognize that what we're able to do sometimes may be a little bit different than maybe it was before, and that's changing over time, but that we still share some common values and want to work towards things that are meaningful, and that therapy is often very helpful for people. There are lots of iterations of mindfulness-based therapies that can bring significant improvements in a number of areas, and overall these things can help with health behaviors like medication adherence, engagement in physical activity. It can help with mental health issues like anxiety and depression. They can help focus just on wellness and well-being in general, not even just sort of hitting at the negative side of the coin, but bolstering the positive side of the coin. And really, the good news is that this has been really very well established in studies specifically examining people with MS. There's a lot of scientific evidence that these things can be extremely helpful.
All right, that's excellent. Now, can you walk us through what a typical session for someone who has never been to a mental health counselor before?
Yeah, and I think this is a great exercise to do because I think it can be scary and intimidating, or at least completely unknown for a lot of people, for people who haven't done this before. So, a typical first session, a mental health counselor will usually take time to understand the problem that brought you through the door. So that's a lot of it. They'll want to know what's going on, what's happening, what are the struggles that you're or challenges that you're dealing with right now. Maybe that is stress. Maybe that's depression. Maybe that's the theme that we're talking about today, being newly diagnosed and not knowing what comes next, uncertainty with adapting. That counselor will probably also spend some time getting to know you a little bit about your background, your strengths, your personal resources, the way that you look at the world. Really, the goal of that process is to match evidence-based treatment strategies with your particular needs. So in a couple of sessions, it should be clear to you what is the goal that you're working on and what kinds of strategies you'll employ to do that. And I hope most importantly that the therapist you're working with is your advocate in that process. Again, as we mentioned before, it takes work and engagement and practice. But the good news is that a lot of these strategies have really been shown when you put effort, when you lean into them, to have real positive results for people over time. So there are a lot of resources that people have that are immediately available to them. It's not something you have to go out or buy. It's something that you can learn how to do.
Great, thank you. That was super helpful. I know that helped lay it out a little bit for myself, and I'm sure for many of our veterans here today. Now, when would medication be recommended to treat anxiety and depression in MS?
Medications are just another tool that's readily available to mental health professionals. And there are a lot of them. Again, the good news is that there are a lot of choices available to people. They're usually prescribed when a particular set of symptoms, focused set of clinical symptoms such as anxiety or depression, are really significant and prominent. They're persistent over time, and they impact functioning and quality of life. Medications, again, the nice thing about mental health treatment options is there are a lot of them. Some people want to have an interest in sort of probably leading with medications. They say that's the easiest thing to incorporate into my life. Other people say, I really don't want to try medications. Really what I want to try is to develop strategies to help me face the challenges that I have in the form of a therapy. Actually, the evidence often suggests in the world more generally that a combination of these two things together are often the most effective. So there are really a lot of options, things you'd work with together on your provider to figure out how they can be helpful to you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Dr. Turner, we have one more poll question for everyone. As a reminder, you can use your camera on your smartphone to scan the QR code or type in slido.com in your web browser and enter code 111807. So our third and final poll question is, I have been able to manage stress in my life by using, and please choose the best answer for you: medication, mental health therapy, relaxing activities like meditation and journaling, and reaching out to family and friends. We'll give everyone here just a minute or two to answer, and then we'll ask Dr. Turner for his thoughts and comments. We're still getting some results in here, so we'll just wait a couple more minutes. All right, so it looks like answers have stopped coming in. Dr. Turner, oh, it just switched on me a little bit there, but it still
I
looks
love
like
it.
our top one is our top one. So Dr. Turner, it looks like reaching out to family and friends was the most popular response. Do you have any comments or thoughts on this?
Yeah, I see these. Yeah, they're still shifting a little
Yeah.
bit, but the two top ones I think tend to be reaching out to family and friends, and it looks like exercise and diet. I think that's yeah, just the value of social support and reaching out to others is known to be incredibly important. I mean, there are even therapies that are specifically designed to engage people in identifying and expressing emotions with loved ones. Um, so of course that's incredibly critical. I think therapies that tend to focus on learning particular skills to deal with chronic illness tend to be a tiny bit more effective in trials of people with MS that we've seen. But of course, social support and reaching out to people is incredibly important. Exercise and diet, there is actually an awful lot of evidence that exercise is an effective treatment for depressive symptoms and stress-related symptoms, specifically for people with MS, and by the way, the world in general, right? So I love that that's another option for people. It's not, there's also quite a bit of interesting literature about how different kinds of exercise are helpful for people. It really surprised me to dive into the literature that resistance training is often associated with improvements in mood and stress. You know, that wouldn't have been my initial inclination. I would have thought it would just been pure aerobic. But so again, I know when Carla was talking about how they got her going on strength training, you know, right away, it's fascinating that also works, you know, it works for mood. Medication, mental health therapy, again, of course, we advocated for those before, just to know that there are, you know, maybe it's because we just chose the title of managing stress that not everybody's saying they're taking medication for stress, for example, but the medication mental health therapies are available to people in the community. And I hope that's just a take-home message that people hear over and over, that, for example, the wide availability of mental health services in the VA MS Centers of Excellence for veterans coming in throughout the VA system. We have 120 psychologists in my VA alone, ready to help people. I'm a little surprised that other activities like relaxing, meditating, and journaling came in so low. I would hope that everybody felt like they had something that was a go-to for them that they could do to help manage stress. So that would be another take home I hope from this, would be that people really felt like, you know, what's the one thing that I can do? If I think about my own stress, there's so many things like, what's the one thing I want to start doing to alleviate stress over time?
All right, thank you, Dr. Turner, for those insights, and thank you again for the valuable information that you've provided here today.
Nice to talk to you.
All right, I'd like to invite Maggie Kasmirsky on camera. Hi, Maggie. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, Maggie's going to talk to us about the important resources available to veterans living with MS. In 2003, the Department of Veterans Affairs established the VA MS Centers of Excellence. Can you please tell us the purpose and goals of the VA's MS Centers of Excellence and where they are located?
Sure. So the VA MS Centers of Excellence are actually located in 3 spots, a shared spot between Portland and Seattle on our west, and we call that the MS Centers of Excellence West. And then our Baltimore, Maryland, we have our MS Centers of East. And our mission is really to support, maintain the health independence, quality of life, and absolutely the productivity of veterans with MS. And we do that through 4 pillars. One of it being clinical care, and that is through improving our clinical services for veterans with MS by fostering an integrated network of health services within the entire VA healthcare system. We also look at education and training, providing national programs of MS education for our VA healthcare providers, our veterans, and our caregivers. We also look at informatics. How can we employ information and telemedicine technology to really enhance MS healthcare delivery? And lastly, of course, we look at research and development, conducting, disseminating, and really applying research that's relevant to the healthcare needs of our veterans with MS.
Excellent. So it sounds like the VA's MS centers collaborate with VAs to make sure veterans get the best care possible and have access to the various resources available within the VA. Now, what types of healthcare professionals are available to help veterans, and how is care coordinated between the various services in the VA?
Well, at the VA, we have a team approach to how we really provide excellent care. And for example, in the Baltimore area, and this is true for many VAs across the regions, we have in our MS clinic specialists, of course, neurologists that have an MS specialty. We have MS fellows, those who are training to be MS specialists. We have nursing case management, a social worker, neuropsychologist, and health psychologists available. We also work in collaboration with different departments within our VA system, such as urology. We could work with physical medicine and rehab services for physical therapy, occupational therapy. We also rely heavily on our pharmacy and our clinical pharmacists to give us really good insight on medications and infusions. And we have nutrition and dietitians involved in our care as well. And all of these providers are really available to our veterans in whether they're on site at that VA or through telemedicine or through consults to other VAs that may have an expertise in one area.
All right, thank you. Now, Carla mentioned her involvement in the Veterans Wheelchair Games. Are there activities in the VA to get veterans involved with others going through similar experiences?
Yes, absolutely. One thing that I think is so particularly unique to our system is that we do have adaptive sports coordinators at almost every VA healthcare facility. So veterans can contact their local VA and be advised by an adaptive sports coordinator on what are some opportunities to participate in either sports or recreational activities that may be adaptive. But overall, we have our National Veterans Sports Program, and the wheelchair games are one of the biggest highlights. And that is a VA and PVA initiative. Definitely Paralyzed Veterans of America have long-standing relationship in keeping that going and really doing a great job with that. But we also have the Golden Age Games for veterans who are 55 and over. We have winter sports clinics for those who want to kind of just try out skiing or snowboarding. We also have a National Veterans Creative Arts Competition and Festival. So we do try and expand that to writing, singing. It can be any component of an art that is meaningful to the veteran. We also have golf clinics and a summer sports clinic that is nationally held. So those are some of the highlights of what we do nationally as a VA system.
All right, great. Sounds like there's plenty of activities to get veterans out there and keep them active. Thank you for sharing all that information. Now, those with MS may experience not being able to do some of the simple tasks of daily living like they used to, such as showering while standing, some parts of cooking, and others may have issues with mobility. Does the VA have programs that can help with daily activities?
Yes, we do. The VA has a program called Home Health Aid Services, and every veteran is eligible to apply if they are meeting the criteria. And the criteria really is about activities of daily living, such as bathing issues, transferring, mobility issues. Maybe there's some issues with toileting and grooming or meal preparation. So if a veteran is experiencing challenges in those areas, they can contact their social worker at the local VA healthcare facility, and they can help to establish what level of care they might need and enroll them in that program if it's appropriate.
Okay, great. Now, we heard from Kimberly, who was diagnosed with MS 2 years after an honorable discharge. Kimberly is wondering if she would be eligible for the VA's benefits and services for people with MS, and how does someone learn if they're eligible?
I would say the first step would be to reach out to an enrollment employee at the local facility, VA facility, to find out if she's eligible for being enrolled in the VA healthcare system, and also reaching out to a veteran service officer through the PVA to find out and to kind of help navigate the benefit side of the VA. Finding out if there are any service connection that she can establish for her MS diagnosis, finding out more information about any kind of grants for adaptive vehicles or structured home loans or grants that she might be eligible for. All of that is really important to have someone that really understands the benefit sides of things. So I always recommend that our veterans seek out some assistance with our service officers through the PVA.
All right. So the VA is working to continuously improve mental health care and services for veterans. What services does the VA provide to support mental health?
I think we have a very robust mental health program and many other components of what we can do in terms of whole health initiatives, telehealth, lots of apps through our VA system. The best place to look for a lot of these resources are mentalhealth.va.gov. It's a place where a veteran can chat with someone that's available, or even email to whoever's online to see how they could get started and enrolled in mental health services. We have vet centers available as well for many of our returning veterans who would like to maybe enlist in a support group or maybe individual counseling. That is definitely available to them as well. We also have a women's veterans call center. Women's veterans call center has been established to be pretty much nationwide and available to our women veterans from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And folks are available to talk. Usually it's a social worker that's manning those telephone calls, and they're able to kind of triage and help them with a local representative at the VA healthcare facility to get them started in either support groups or individual counseling.
All right, thank you, Maggie. And if you guys were unable to catch that website as she gave it out, they are up on the screen, the MS Centers of Excellence resources as well, and the MS Navigators at the MS Nationals, or at the National MS Society we'll be able to get you guys in contact with the correct people as well. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Paralyzed Veterans of America. The PVA improves the lives of veterans who live with paralysis. It serves people with traumatic spinal cord injuries, and 1/3 of its members live with multiple sclerosis. So Maggie, can you tell us about the PVA Veterans Benefits Program and how national service officers and benefits specialists can help veterans with healthcare needs?
I think the most unique thing about the PVA, the benefits program, is the fact that they're able to offer a service officer to kind of parallel the help that we help with our veterans at a local VA. So for example, I work with a PVA service officer here locally, and he has been great in making sure that I don't miss anything if there is a veteran that's trying to enroll in healthcare. He's usually giving me a warm handoff, making sure that I can introduce this person to the enrollment process. Or if there is a veteran that's really struggling with service connection or understanding benefits, or maybe there's some issues with one of their benefit for a loan or a grant, I can reach out to him and I can say, I really need your help in navigating the benefits side for this veteran. Are you able to do that? And that is the beauty of that relationship, where we're able to kind of tag team both the healthcare side as well as the benefits side, and make sure that we're getting all of those needs met for that particular veteran.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jackie recently returned to civilian life and could use some help finding a job. Does the PVA offer services to help Jackie with employment?
Yes, they do have a wonderful program, and I've actually had several of local veterans involved in their program. It's the PVA Veterans Career Program, and it's really returning to work or keeping a job or looking at transitioning into a different career. It provides free employment and vocational counseling to pretty much all veterans, and those who are transitioning, spouses, and caregivers. So the PVA has at their disposal these great employment analysts and vocational rehab counselors that can work with clients to really determine what's that path toward a meaningful career. And a lot of the times, identifying those employment barriers and other obstacles, and also doing some sessions together one-on-one to make sure that they can really access all the supports and resources in their community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie, for that information. Now, the PVA also offers sports and recreation programs, and it co-sponsors the National Veterans Wheelchair Games with the VA each summer. Tell us about those programs and how people can get involved.
Absolutely. The PVA definitely supports the wheelchair games. And I think they also have a network of other wonderful recreational activities and programs. I know they have trap shooting and fly fishing and bocce ball, which is very popular here with many of our older veterans. There's just a plethora of things that are available. And if it's something that the PVA or the VA hasn't been doing in terms of recreation and sports, we work with other partnered organizations as well that are sponsored by the VA that can bring about adaptive kayaking or cycling, something that our veteran will enjoy doing and getting out there and getting their exercise. So I feel like the PVA really gets a good gamut of that. And the best way to really get involved is to reach out to the local chapter of the PVA or calling the social worker at the local facility at the VA. That could help kind of bridge that gap, as well as the adaptive sports coordinator at a VA. They will be the ones really up to speed on what's going on at that very moment in adaptive sports and recreation.
Okay, great. Now, what's the best way to contact someone at the PVA to get information on any of these programs and services?
But I think the PVA is really great at answering their emails. So I have emailing them at info@pva.org, going on the website, and then also they have a 1-800 number that's easy to utilize, and someone is there to answer their questions. And also the social worker at the local facility usually would have that information, because they're usually working with someone from the PVA on the benefit side, and they have a liaison that they can kind of openly bridge that gap there in communication.
All right, thank you. And if any of you need that information again, it is up on the screen, the Paralyzed Veterans of America resources. One more thing about the PVA, the National Service Officers specialize in MS, ALS, and spinal cord injuries. I myself am actively involved with the PVA and co-chair of the newly formed MS committee. We are just getting organized, but the vision is to serve as a voice for veterans with MS on legislative issues, educate others about the impacts of MS on veterans, and serve as a resource for any PVA member with MS. Thank you again, Maggie. That information was excellent. And now we're going to transition into the National MS Society resources. So the National MS Society recently signed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Veterans Affairs MS Centers of Excellence. Tell us about how the Society, the VA, and the PVA all work together.
We really complement each other, and it's been a really wonderful working relationship. Whenever I can't fill a need or a resource, or there's some kind of a gap, I reach out to the MS Navigator through the National MS Society to see if there is a community resource that I'm missing. And if there is a veteran that is really struggling with navigating the healthcare system or the benefit side, I reach out to my PVA partners and I make sure that our veterans are linked into a service officer through the PVA. So it really bridges this wonderful relationship where all three organizations are able to kind of really well complement one another in getting all the gaps of services and resources available there for our veterans.
All right, excellent. And now I know you've mentioned them before, but the Society's MS Navigator program provides answers to questions and access to information about all of the options available to people living with MS, including veterans.
Yes.
How can someone connect with an MS Navigator?
It's quite simple. If you are already enrolled in the VA healthcare system, social workers are able to make a direct referral, and we have set up a way to do this with the National MS Society. You can also connect via chat through the nationalmssociety.org website. You can also connect through email, and of course, phone. The 1-800 number that's on the screen there is a good number as well.
Okay. Now, does the Society have any self-help or support groups for veterans living with MS?
Yes, absolutely. I think the connections programs through the self-help groups, similar to MS Friends, the paired peer program that they have available through the support programs, as well as the National MS Society community in Facebook. And of course, there's a section of the website of the National MS Society where it's just for veterans. And I feel like that's a really good place to start when looking for support for veterans with MS.
All right, thank you. I also wanted to just add a little information there as well. I lead an MS support group for veterans living with MS. We currently have veterans and active duty from all branches of service. So we would love for you guys to join us. If you're out there, you can contact me directly. My email will be up on the slide at the end of this presentation as well. So we look forward to seeing you guys. And don't forget, this program, Ask an MS Expert Veterans Program, is also a wonderful resource for veterans. This program takes place quarterly and is an opportunity for veterans to connect and ask questions to MS experts on topics impacting veterans affected by MS. Don't worry if you missed the live event. You can find the recording on the National MS Society's website. Please visit nationalmssociety.org/veterans for more information and resources specifically for veterans. Maggie, thank you so much again for your valuable information and being with us here today.
Thank you.
I also want to share that the Elite Warrior Project podcast just released a great episode with the PVA's Associate Director of Medical Services, Juliet Pierce, who spoke to us about dysphagia and swallowing challenges in MS. Our upcoming episode, we will discuss the PVA's Veteran Career Program that we talked about here today. You can connect with the National MS Society, the VA, and the PVA through social media channels. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and/or get on the mailing list to continue to receive up-to-date information on MS and updates on upcoming programs. With that being said, I would like to now focus our time on addressing some questions that our audience has for our three experts. So would Dr. Turner, Carla, and Maggie please join me on camera? All right, welcome back. Thank you, guys. So let's get started with our Q&A. This first question is for Maggie. And Tony wants to know if there is a peer support program for veterans either through the VA, the PVA, or the National MS Society. I know we touched on this.
Yes. Your group, Ashley. That's where I send veterans with MS looking for peer support and in a group kind of environment. But I would also say that many of our VAs will offer support groups depending on where you are through video and through telehealth. And so it's always meaningful to kind of reach out to either the social worker or the psychologist in the VA facility to find out more about veteran-specific groups, especially if you are and have been diagnosed with MS.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, you bring up the video as well as in person and the telehealth. So those are excellent resources as well. All right, Dr. Turner, this next question is for you. And Regina is asking if medication for anxiety and depression is safe to take with DMTs.
Okay, there's a general and a specific answer to that question. I think in general, there are no global contraindications for doing so, and people do it all the time, quite frequently. Much more specifically, there are a lot of different DMT medications, and there are a lot of different psychopharmacologic agents. And Regina, a provider would have to know about your particular health and medical background to make an informed decision. So you need to ask your provider specifically for your individual circumstances. It'll depend on all three of those factors. But you shouldn't hesitate to ask because it's very likely there's an option that's going to be right for you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Turner. Carla, Denise wants to know what you're most proud of accomplishing. Is there a particular moment or memory that stands out for you?
Yes, actually, there are two things. Right now, we're in the season of Walk MS, and I'm very proud of my team, Better and Strong, and everybody is encouraged to join a team or just donate. And right now, we're in fourth place out of 120 teams in the Dallas area, so I'm very proud of that. We finished in fourth and fifth places the last 2 years, so we have a reputation to maintain. And the other thing I'm really proud of is climbing a rock wall with my sister and brother-in-law there. They came to Cincinnati to see me at the wheelchair games, and I am afraid of heights. I'm not kidding. But I scaled a rock wall with the assistance of a young man who was an amputee. He had his prosthesis on, and he climbed the wall like a spider. And it was such a thrill to get to the top. And I'm glad my sister and brother-in-law were there to witness it and share it with us.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And congratulations on your MS Walk team.
Thank you.
All right, Maggie, back to you. Lisa said she was denied benefit support from the VA. Can she file an appeal?
Yes, absolutely. The VA is set up in a way that if you feel like they made a wrong call about your benefits, you can always appeal. And when there is an appeal process, I strongly recommend working with a service officer through the PVA because they're the most familiar with the appeals process and documentation. And I will strongly work with that PVA service officer to also look at how our clinics and how our team can provide any additional documentation or support for that particular appeal process if it has something to do with the whole the function of that person or needing to look at service connection.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Turner, we have a question from Crystal, who has experienced new MS symptoms this year, which really surprised her, and she's having a hard time thinking positively about the future. She's wondering if there are tools and resources to help build resilience, or are there professionals that could help?
Hi, Crystal. Yeah, I think the answer to all those things is yes. I think even if you just start by going to the National MS Society website and adding that in the words resilience, you'll get a page that comes up with a lot of particular and specific materials, including books that you could look at, links to other kinds of resources related to some of the things that we've already talked about, wellness building strategies, mindfulness, other kinds of resilience building strategies. In some places you can find the National MS Society Everyday Matters program, which is an example of a program that's designed to help build resilience. And certainly there are just a number of resources available, for example, through the VA in terms of mental health professionals who are ready to and happy to deal with all kinds of challenges, right? Whether that's on the side of things where you note that you're having a hard time and what specifically might be a treatment or help or support for that. And for building resilience tools more generally. Again, people mentioned previously whole health programs, which are a whole system of strategies and practices that the VA is trying to roll out nationally to make available to people that include things like meditation, Tai Chi, yoga. We provide, for example, often people with MS have experienced pain. We have hypnosis for pain control at our particular facility. Lots of those kinds of strategies. We have, again, a large mental health service in our particular VA, a specific subset of rehabilitation psychologists specifically dedicated to meeting the challenges of people who are facing increasing kinds of disability, for example, and are used to talking to people about those kinds of issues and talking to people with MS. We have support groups specifically for MS. We have groups related to lots of specific kinds of practices, again, like mindfulness practices, skill building practices, CBT groups, insomnia groups. There's just the list of groups changes like every week. It basically just keeps getting longer and longer. If you feel like you want to reach out and connect with the VA, I think once you talk to somebody, a live person on the other end, they can help guide you to all these resources because there's so many, and the most overwhelming part is like accessing them because there's so many of them. So lots and lots of opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Turner, for that. I know when I was getting out in San Diego, one of the social workers at the VA in San Diego recommended a mind-body medicine seminar that they were hosting. So, I mean, there's tons of programs that are extremely helpful. You just have to find the right one and the one that sits best with you. So thank you so much for sharing all of those. And our last question is for Carla. So Amy wants to know, how do you stay so positive when you're having a bad day?
I stay positive by trying to remember that I'm here for a purpose. God put me here for a purpose, and I have MS for a purpose. And I realize that volunteering, doing things in the community, allowing people to see that MS is not stopping me, inspires people. People tell me that. And I'm up in the church choir singing. People think I'm singing. A lot of times I'm lip syncing because MS has impacted my vocal cords. But if people say that inspires them, and I'm happy to do that. People see me strolling down or rolling down the street in my wheelchair with my shopping bags hanging off the back. I'm not going to let it stop me. And so I just try to focus on what I can do, not focus on what I can't do or what I used to do. I try to take whatever I can do and move it forward, do it a little bit more each day.
Excellent. That's so valuable. Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you to everyone who submitted your comments and questions. And thank you, Dr. Turner, Carla, and Maggie for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you again to Dr. Turner, Carla, and Maggie for sharing your knowledge and for everyone's engagement in today's program. The recording will be made available on the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/MS-expert. I invite you to join us in May for our next Ask an MS Expert Veterans program. And lastly, it is important to get your feedback on today's program. You will see a survey pop up when we close out this webinar. Completing the survey does make a difference, and it only takes 1 minute to complete. The information that you provide helps continuously improve and shape future segments. See you next time, everyone.